Do you find that you ever run into the same thing a lot of writers run into, which is that there are days you absolutely can't paint, or there's moods you get in and you can't paint, or your painting is terrible?
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
No, there's not really much to say about that, except that you do get painter's block, just like writers get writer's block. And there are times when you have to set things aside. I, most of the time, have about 4 or 5 paintings going because you can lose objectivity if you're just concentrating on one sometimes. And I've had paintings that started not to work, and I put them aside and forgot about them and picked them out years later and completely corrected them. Or it may happen in a far shorter time span. You know, one night I won't be able to paint, the next day I'll look at it and I'll think, well, what the heck was I doing that for? You know, and wipe that out and do something else and make it work. So, yeah, that's definitely something that happens on occasion. But by and large, I have to be painting at least some of the time. It's just one of those things you find that's part of you, and if you're not doing it over a certain period of time, then there's something not quite right. And the only way you can correct it is to start painting again.
Being that you're in Oregon, have you ever wanted to be somewhere else, living full-time, painting totally different work?
Well, I don't know about painting totally different work, but being in a different place, well, sure I have. I get a lot of great imagery from Oregon, and there's a tremendous variety of imagery, from forest to high mountain desert, that sort of thing. So one could be, you know, very happy painting in this area because there's a wealth of material to draw from. But I think of other places as well. So,
what other places interest you?
Oh gosh, some of my early imagery. The earliest imagery that I remember comes from Panama, of all places, where my dad was the base commander at the Panama Canal Zone in the 50s.
Wow.
And some of my clearest memories were from about age 2.5, where I remember the white sand beaches of Panama and the large volcanic rocks. I remember one time sitting on the beach with my dad, and there was this white sand everywhere, and behind us was the lush vegetation. And he told me to get on top of this rock quickly that was about the size of a bed. And I did, and from behind us came a rustling, and then hundreds of thousands of little orange-red crabs came crawling out of the brush and covering the white sand, orange-red, and they parted around the rock we were on.
I would have screamed.
And, you know, you can't pay for something like that. It's just, I think my surrealistic tendencies were sparked in those times by images like that. It shows you that the world is a varied place with a lot of different things going on. We have to pay attention to it when we can. And that's one of those things that I remember very vividly. And I would also remember watching him take off in his C-47 from the runway, and I'd be standing there waving at him. And to a child, a runway stretches out forever. And so you get the fundamentals of perspective right there without even really knowing it. Time, distance, all of those things come into play. And so later on, we draw on these images, and it has an effect on us. It certainly affected ultimately the way I paint and the way I think.
When you look at your paintings, one feels like they're in the thing they're looking at. Not like they're looking at it, but like all of a sudden they're in it. How is that able to happen? How do you do that?
Well, it's because that's the way I look at it. I look at them kind of as windows, and I'm not out there to give people lessons or something like that. I'm asking questions, and as I paint, I'm asking these questions, and when I'm done, I guess my hope would be that people would look at them in the same way that I did and have it affect them in a similar way to myself, although they'll draw their own conclusions from it and have their own way of looking at it, but it will draw them in and cause them to ask questions as well.
What fascinates you about life, John?
Well, on the very face of it, the fact that I'm here I find miraculous.
Like gratitude?
Oh, well, yeah, in a sense. I mean, we have all sorts of stuff thrown at us all the time in our lives, and I guess part of the challenge is in dealing with them, and I suspect that we're here to learn, because I detect that there is a reason for being here. Otherwise, we wouldn't spend so much time thinking about it. Nature doesn't allow for a lot of frivolity, and it singles species out for extinction that don't get the message. So there must be a reason for us asking these questions. Otherwise, we'd be wasting our time. I'm grateful for being here. I think that I'm learning as I go. life is the college of hard knocks, ultimately. But we can be grateful for those moments of inspiration and awareness, moments, I would say, of uncommon perception when we learn something new. That's another stage of the initiatory level in life.
You have anything you want that can happen in the next year. Anything. Where are you? What are you doing?
I don't know about the where of it, but the what of it is basically doing the work that I do and being in a situation where I can freely do it. That's what I work for, and that's where, of course, I'd like to be.
How would you like to be remembered, John?
I guess as somebody who did what he thought was best with the abilities that he'd been given and hopefully made some sort of contribution to the way people look at the world. Maybe that's a tall order.
I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been listening to, and learning from John Oberdorf, surreal landscape artist who works on many different types of canvases and many different types of environments. He has this ability to bring us into new worlds and does what I call a form of initiatory art. John, is there anything else you'd like to say before we complete this segment?
Well, I'm just grateful for being able to talk to you, and thank you for being there to ask me the questions and having the interest.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in the work of John Oberdorf, we're going to put some images on the page here. Feel free to call the Rainmaking Company at 626-398-8652. This will help support the show and John, and we thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
It's Rainmaking time.